Hello there, and welcome to the I Never Knew podcast, also known as Inc. This show dives into the life experiences of people who have been through it all and have come through the other side stronger, better, and triumphant. Each story is raw, authentic, and, at times, heartbreaking. One thing joins it all together: the fact that the stories can help the listener learn and grow. Hosted by life coach Maureen, she sits down each episode with a new guest who will empower the listener to set out on their self-discovery journey and start to heal. Now you'll be joined by Maureen and her special guest. Please enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode. Actually, this is a bonus episode today of I Never Knew Inc., but My Dog Did podcast. I am your host, Maureen Scanlon, and I had a little time today. I'm actually going to be a guest on a podcast today, but I had some time in between. I normally interview a guest and we talk about their story, and if you're following and you're here, I'm so happy to have you. So I thought today I would do an episode of what I got some inspiration from. I don't know why, but how do we ever know how these ideas come? And I was outside this morning, and it just came to me that the podcast is I never knew, but I don't really focus on what I do know. And so today, my episode is Here's What I Know. As you know, my history with domestic violence, being a single mom, being codependent, just struggles in general, mental health in my family, with my children. I've learned so much, and it took me a long time, yes. I was in St. Louis last week doing a professional production of my signature speech that I'm going to eventually, hopefully, put on TED or go to a TEDx event. But I wanted to start today. You know, I post every day on my Facebook. I have a mindfulness and positivity seekers page, which we have almost 3,000 members. And I think every morning I get up and I post these positive, motivational things. And I wonder if people think that's all there is to me. That, do I struggle? Do I have these moments, or am I just this Pollyanna behind the microphone and behind the keyboard who everything is, rainbows and unicorns? And obviously, as a human, you know that I don't, and I struggle with my own stuff. And my friend Christy and I joke, we walk every week together, and we joke, and I'll say to her, hey, the life coach needs life coaching today. So I wanted to just give just some basic things that I've learned that I hope can help listeners so that you don't have to go through the repetitive experiences that I did, because I'm a slow learner. Okay. I just maybe don't get it, or it's not as obvious to me, or it wasn't, at least until now. Things are much more obvious, and anyone in the mental health or self-help arena, you understand how much more magnified things are when you work on yourself. As I think back to my destructive relationships. So as you know, my first marriage, I was married for 10 years, and he was an alcoholic. He was not present as a father, and he had a lot of anger issues. He would get black rage. He would choke me. He was completely degrading and would consistently just, I don't even think it was the beat me down to build me up. It was just the beat me down. And I came from a household, which I get along great with my parents now. But in our household, knowing now what I know, their upbringings just were repetitive, and their parents' upbringings were repetitive. And there was just so much judgment. And I used to say, if there's a clear blue sky, my parents would be able to find that one gray cloud. And I now can look back with perspective and say, I know they loved me, and I know that they did the absolute best that they could with what they had. They maybe didn't have the resources we have now where they could get self-help. They were in survival mode. And I'm really happy that myself, and now even more so my children and grandchildren, get to be in thrive mode. And it makes all the difference in really becoming the person you were meant to be and fulfilling your purpose when you're not clouded by all that stuff from the past or even your ancestors and those generational repetitions that tend to happen. So here's what I know now. I recall going to a counselor and telling them in this other relationship after my marriage and after my divorce, and getting in this other relationship, which was pretty much the same person, different face. There was no physical violence, but there was definitely psychological and mental abuse, and probably more so damaging even than the physical violence, if you can believe that. I believed I was, just supposed to do what this person told me to do, even though I didn't consciously believe that. In conscious self, it was, you can't tell me what to do. I'm going to do what I want. But subconsciously, by allowing it for 6 years, I still hadn't healed and believed that I had a choice. When I went to this counselor, and again, this next relationship, he was also an alcoholic. And in addition, I think he had, psychopathy or sociopathy. I really believe there was a lot more that I didn't understand. What that I do now, with my background in psychology and being a life coach, both my life experience and now my education definitely recognizes these things, and I help others recognize it. But I remember going to this counselor and telling him everything that was going on. He wanted to meet with me before he would meet with us as a couple. And he said to me in the counseling session, I'm not going to meet with him. And I said, What do you mean? Why not? Because he wanted to meet with me first. And I said, why don't you want to meet with him? And he said, because you don't need to be in this relationship. And I said, well, I'm here to try to get help, and this is what's going on. And he said to me something that still sticks in my mind to this day. He said, Maureen, you talk like you're an 80-year-old whose life is over. And at the time, I was, how old was I? I was probably 37 years old, maybe 38 years old. And of course, I thought he was crazy. Like, what do you mean? You don't know me. You don't know what's going on. But as I drove away from that counseling session, I remember thinking how profound that was. Because I kept saying, well, I don't have a choice. Next lifetime I'll do something different. I just kept repeating to myself I didn't have a choice. Well, here's what I know now. I do have a choice. And I think we forget that when we're in the midst of garbage, and I mean garbage in our lives, just everything's coming at you. Say you've lost a job, you don't have a relationship, or you do have a relationship and it's not the one you want. You're going through a divorce, you're having problems with your children. it is so profound how that thought, I don't have a choice, is in the forefront of your mind. And that was the thing that I think truly, of everything I could coach on, I could speak on, I could write about, I think that's the one thing that I take from this life, is that I learned that I had a choice and that I had the right to create my life. I had the right to say yes or no. I had the right to say, that's a boundary. I'm not doing that. You're not allowed to cross that line in the sand. You're not allowed to treat me that way. It took me a long time. It really did. I was 45 when I finally got out of the last narcissistic relationship I was in, and just sat for, a year or two and evaluated myself. I was listening to a video the other day of Brene Brown, and she said something that really I loved. She said, it's easier to offload pain than to feel it. And I think that's what I was doing. I was offloading pain for so many years because I didn't want to feel it. And my offloading was not being mean to people. It was not projecting onto people. My offloading was continuing a negative cycle of just doing what everybody thinks I should do. It was my offloading of, I don't feel good about myself, so I'm going to keep doing these things to earn love, and eventually I'll feel good about myself. And when I sat for those 2 years and just felt it and cried, and you all know the story of how the dogs helped me write the books, because in those moments of sitting and feeling the pain, they were there. The dogs were there. And that's really where all of the inspiration and why my whole outlook on dogs and their unconditional lives for themselves and for others has inspired me. But the beauty of it was just those baby steps and that bravery that I had to finally do, the courage I finally had to take in choosing a different life for myself, choosing who I wanted to spend time with, choosing the places I wanted to go, choosing how I wanted to think. I think that's a big one. Choosing how you want to think. I think now, how do you not choose what you want to think? But I know this to be true because I did it for so many years. I didn't choose how I could think because I didn't have a lot of choices in my mind. I was too busy making sure that I was there for everybody else and what their thoughts were and what their lives were and what their feelings were. So I know I have a choice. And if you take anything away from this episode, just know you have a choice. Get up every day and say, today I choose to do this. Today I choose my thoughts. Today I'm allowed to have choices. Today I can do whatever it is I need to do for me. The next thing that I know now is that no one can save me. I think for a long time when I was in those mentally, psychologically, and physically abusive situations, I think I sort of thought people would come in and see it or just know, because I wouldn't talk about it, that's for sure. But I thought someone's got to step in and they're going to help me with this. And that help never came. And that lifesaver was never thrown. I remember after my first divorce, I met a gentleman, went out on my birthday. It was actually my 30th birthday. It was right after my divorce. And I met a gentleman at a country bar, and we just hit it off. And he was such a nice guy, and he said all the right things, and he showed kindness, And as we started dating, he really cared about my kids. And I ended up marrying him 1 year later because that bar was pretty low. Now, he's a great guy. I'm not saying he's not a great guy. And we've talked later on. We've actually talked and had a decent conversation. And I take the accountability that I saw him as this knight in shining armor because he didn't abuse me. And we should have been friends. We should have stayed in the friend zone. But I was looking to be saved. And he came in and he helped me with the kids. And we had 2 incomes. And it was just easier. It was easier to be saved than to be brave. And I don't regret that, but that was a short-lived marriage because he was unable to be a step parent in the way I needed him to be. And I was over protective of my children due to the lack of their own father. So it was really a perfect storm and a recipe for disaster. But it did teach me that no one can save me. The next thing that I do know, and this is a big one for me, I know that toxic people in your life have to go. Now, it's easy to say, oh, this person, this acquaintance over here is negative and I don't like her and I can get her out of my life. Why? Because she's never become a habit. You have never become emotionally attached to that person because they're an acquaintance. But when we go further into toxic people, this is where it gets harder. So friendships that you've had for years that you didn't realize they were all about themselves, or they really didn't care about you the way they said they did, that their actions did not match their words. And I had this experience this year with a friendship I had for 18 years. And as much as it's sad that I had to let it go, though there was a tipping point of something that happened in the friendship. And this person cut me to the core by their lack of awareness of my feelings. And it just really showed me, sort of brought up that hindsight is 20/20, and then things from the past started popping up like, oh, well, they had done that before, they had done that. And it was weird because I still questioned, well, it's just this one thing. And then people who knew our friendship, people who had seen our friendship and witnessed our friendship said, but she's always done that. And it caught me off guard. Because I thought, wow, did I miss that? Like, how did I miss that? And that really reminded me of how these life experiences, when I say I'm a slow learner, I think it's also that these life experiences present themselves in different ways. So I knew how to get rid of a toxic relationship. I knew how to get rid of, or at least separate myself or detach myself from toxic relatives, which we're going to go into as well. And then this presented in another way. Oh my gosh, I never had an experience with the toxic friendships. And so it just taught me that things are going to present themselves in so many different ways in order for you to fully heal or learn whatever that thing is that you wanted to learn, or you asked to learn, or you needed to learn in this life to just evolve yourself. So it was disappointing. And what was disappointing, and this will help listeners, this will really help when we have to remove people from our lives. We have this sadness and we have this tendency to want to go back and to forgive, because of the memories of the good times overrule the toxicity and the pain sometimes. And it's when you're able to figure out how to really say, with an honest heart and with a transparent mind, even writing it down, writing down the pros and cons, and it'll surprise you because things will start kind of flowing. It's interesting if we stop looking at just the good stuff. And the good stuff you'll find in relationships, and you can weigh it out and see how it balances out for your relationships. If you have more good times in a relationship than bad, friendships, sorry, I'm got a bug in my or a frog in my throat today. If you have more good stuff than bad stuff in a relationship, then it is worth evaluating. And then you can have these vulnerable conversations with the people and say, hey, this happens often. Is this something that you're willing to work on? But when you start really evaluating it and you think, wow, we only have good times once or twice a year now. And every time I talk to them, it's about them, or they don't really ask about me, or they're very unkind, or they say things that don't sit well with me. You'll start to realize who to keep in your life and who not to. And that's really being honest with yourself. Even though you're going to miss the habit of the person, I think when you clear it out and I feel lighter, I'm sad and I'm also thankful for the time that we had. But it's okay to grow and it's okay to level up. And in my speech that I talk about is, we think time and blood, keep us tied to these people, keep us shackled to people. Well, I've put in 18 years, I've got to figure this out, or, well, it is my mother, I have to deal with that. And you really don't. I heard something in a video about we contract with people in our lives. And someone had said, and I love this, I don't know if I read it on Facebook or heard it in a video, but someone said, sometimes those contracts end. And that just feels so much easier. Because I don't want to be that person that walks around, he's toxic, she's toxic. I don't, these are the buzzwords I know we use in mental health and we use in this self-help. But I don't really want to go around calling everybody toxic, even if they are. I would rather just say our contract ended and I'm grateful for the time that we had. Because it feels so much more compassionate. So the next thing that I know is that you can't be a victim. And this is an interesting thing because I struggled with telling my story. And I know a lot of, motivational speakers and authors who write these autobiographies and biographies and go on my podcast and tell their vulnerable stories. And I always tell them I'm so grateful for it because I know how hard that is. And I remember, asking my mom why she wouldn't read my book. And she said, because I don't want to hear you complaining about all the things I did in your childhood. And I felt bad for her because I wasn't doing that. And again, it sort of instilled that I need to behave a certain way. And we have in my childhood, it was appearances were very important. Many of my childhood friends had no idea what my home life was like and had never even been to my house. And that's interesting to me that I held all of that in and it came out, because it always does, in finding these dysfunctional relationships because I was told how I was supposed to behave. And that codependent behavior just continued and continued. So it was really interesting to me. And I'm not saying that my mother viewed herself as a victim, but in a way, it was just her own shame. And no parent is perfect. And I know this. And I know there's conversations my mother and I have had since I've been an adult that I appreciate. And she did take accountability for a lot of stuff and explained what her childhood was like. So I don't fault her for that. And I think it made us closer. And I think that's the key here, is not being a victim. And so in sharing our stories, we're not victims. We are actually empowered, and we're reaching out to help others. It's showing we're taking what we had and not sitting with it and feeling sorry for ourselves, but rather using it as a stepping stone to help others. So when you're not succeeding in your life, or you feel stuck, or you can't get ahead, you don't have the financial abundance that you want, or you tend to go back to a mindset of, I had a lot of childhood trauma. A lot of that is just being a victim. And you might not even be conscious of it. It might just be subconscious. But I think this is where we have to start letting go of the victim part of that and do the victor part of it and say, in spite of this, I now choose. Back to that choice thing. In spite of this, I choose to help others. Bring it for good. Don't let it sit there like a boulder in your heart, in your soul, holding you down, holding you back, and limiting you from growing and from achieving your desires. I remember that counselor saying, you think your life is over. You talk like an 80-year-old. That's where I was. I was a victim. I was a victim in my mind that all these outside influences and circumstances and people were preventing me from getting out of this cage. My husband and I joke now, because my husband now is the most amazing human. You all heard the episode with him and I, how we really had to grow separately and become whole, and then we could be really, really good for each other. And we've always said, I was a bird in a cage with the door open. So I voluntarily stayed in the cage as a victim because I didn't think I had a choice to get out of this cage, which is insane now because nobody's holding me back now. And now I'm a free bird. I feel like I should sing Free Bird right now. But I seriously, it's crazy when you all of a sudden, go from one side to the other. It's like being in a haunted house, and then and it's all dark and there's all these scary things. And then all of a sudden, someone opens the door to the daylight and you're going, whoa, it's like bright and not scary out here. I think that's how I felt. I felt like for the first time I got to get out of something that I was allowed to get out of all along. And I had no belief that I could do that. And I got to spread those wings and be where I am with you guys today, and being able to connect with my life coaching clients and see them get out of their cages. It just brings me so much joy and fulfillment, because we all deserve it, but we don't all believe we deserve it. That's the problem. We all deserve it, but we all don't know or believe we deserve it. That should be on a billboard somewhere. And as you guys know, my banner that I ask all of my guests to tell me what would be on their banner when they're making a march downtown for world change, my banner is that we're all saying the same thing. And you could talk and listen to anyone from Brene Brown to Tony Robbins to Jay Shetty to, your health coaches, your trainers, your workout trainers, to your life coaches, to your therapists, to your counselors, to your pastors. Seriously, I can't emphasize this enough. If you break down how everyone is saying it, they're all saying we want validation and we want acceptance of ourselves. That's it. That's the Lost Dutchman's treasure we're looking for. Because I do live right by the Superstition Mountains, FYI. That's where that reference came from. But it is. I think that's the Lost Dutchman's treasure, is that we're going to constantly go put ourselves in danger seeking this thing. And it's actually really simple because you don't have to go looking for it. It's right there inside of you. And I use the BONE acronym in my speech, and it starts with the B is bravery, the O is observant, the N is necessary, and the E is expectant. So think about that. You take those 4 things and you find this validation and acceptance within yourself. So the last thing I want to talk about before I end this, here's what I know. And here is probably also the most impactful thing for me in the last few years that I've discovered since self-awareness and this journey of healing that I've been on. And it's connecting to others is vital. It is. You can't do this alone. Although everything is inside of you, you can't do this alone. And when I say you can't do this alone, this does not mean someone can save you or someone has to walk you through or you rely on someone for your happiness and well-being. What I'm saying is connecting to others is vital if you have some things that you want to heal. Connect with a life coach, connect with a therapist, connect with a podcaster that talks about mental health, connect with your medical provider, connect with your psychologist, psychiatrist, whoever it is, a best friend, a parent, those people that are in your life that lift you, that encourage you, that support you, that show up for you. And I'm underlining that one 10 times. Who's showing up for you? Because they're the ones you stay connected to. When you remove those toxic people, you stay connected to those people who are consistent. There's a word. Be consistent for yourself and be consistent for others. And look at who's consistently there for you. What's really cool, and I'm certain a lot of you understand the law of attraction, is when you start, doing all of these things, choosing, saving yourself, not looking to be saved, getting rid of toxic people, not having a victim mentality, and connecting. The people that come into your awareness, they come out of nowhere. They just show up like you're a magnet. That has been, for me, such an eye-opener. Because when you when you're focused on negativity, then you're drawing in more energy. That's negative, right? Where attention goes, energy flows. But it's so, we should change that to, where positive people go, positive energy flows. And I think that's really why this podcast has been everything for me, the life coaching and the books, and just being in this arena, speaking events, anyone who's ready for this change, I find, and I would love your comments on this, guys. I would love, love, love to hear your comments. I find that today there's more of a divisive line between forget races and sexuality and political views, divisiveness. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking there is more of a definitive line between those who are in their old mindsets, who are in the old school way of thinking, continuing these generational habits, thoughts, parenting cycles. And then there's the other side of that line, which is all this mental health awareness. We now have 988 that you can dial if you're suicidal and you get a live person immediately in an emergency. We now have all this technology. Oh my goodness, go to YouTube and put in motivational speakers and it's going to be crazy. You'll be there for, the next 20 years. TED Talks, all of it. I love it because we've now chosen and decided to embrace that we need healing, to embrace the fact that, we're messed up. We can be messed up. We're messed up parents. We're messed up kids. We're messed up siblings. We're messed up employees, all of it. But on this side of the line, we get to be better. And I think for me, that is the most important thing that I have seen. And I don't know if it's that when you buy a red car, you see all the red cars. And if it is, I don't care. I really don't care. Because I want to see this side of the line. Now, I'm able to be aware of the other side of the line. And I can really hone in on it. But the difference is I get to stay on my side. And I get to wish them well on the other side. But I'm over here playing with the people on my side. On this definitive line of we want to be better humans. And we want to be compassionate to one another. So that is what I know. And I thank you all so much for being here today. And I thank you for being my listeners and for your comments. I would love you guys to share and give 5-star reviews because I think this is a movement that we all need to know we're in it together. And we all experience the same things. We all have we're at different places and different stages of our healing. And we all have different human understandings, and that's okay. That's what makes us beautiful is the differences. And on this side of the line versus the other side of the line, we're okay. We're embracing this. We like the differences. We have open minds. We're non-judgmental on this side of the line. And we can just choose to send love and light to those on the other side until they're ready with no judgment. Because we're all in it together and we're all saying the same thing. So thank you guys. Can't thank you enough for listening, for being here, for helping each other, for helping yourself. If you want any coaching, please do reach out because I live to help and I live to help people heal and to be on this side where you're always striving to be the person you deserve to be. and the person that you came here to be, to fulfill your purpose. So lifecoachmaureen.com. And sometimes there's little problems with my website. I was just noticing today. I'm also on Facebook, so just find me at Maureen Scanlon and Life Coach Maureen as well on Facebook. Lots of ways to find me. LinkedIn, Twitter at Scanlon Life. So please just find me if you need anything or you have any comments. I would love to hear from you and talk to you. So I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and thanks for letting me share. Thank you for letting me have this platform, this safe space where everyone is welcome, and anyone who would love to be a guest and have a conversation on my podcast, I welcome you. And don't forget to go to mydogiseverything.net. It is our boutique where we have healthy products, gifts, and fun apparel for your puppies. So I'm all about the dogs. Please support the ASPCA as well. That is near and dear to my heart. And I hope everyone has a fabulous day. And we'll see you soon. Take care, everyone. Big hugs.